Or the Old Trafford hierarchy as they look to strengthen their squad before the transfer deadline on September the 1st. A new season began with a promising performance but a narrow defeat as an error from standing goalkeeper Altay Bayındır allowed Arsenal to pinch a 1-0 win. We'll get to these two in a minute. After the game, Gary Neville was adamant they must sign a new goalkeeper.
It also points towards a glaring issue for United that can't be ignored, and that is that they do need to find a goalkeeper. They have to. I'm absolutely unequivocal on that because I had experience at United for 20 years where there were two big periods of 7 or 8 years with Schmeichel and Van der Sar, and then in between we had 7 or 8 goalkeepers in a sort of 6, 7, 8 year period, and it's really unsettling when you haven't got a dominant number one who's 6'2", who's dominant in the air, who owns his 6-yard box, who comes and punches everything, who makes a lot of saves and one-on-one and saves your points when your defenders make mistakes.
Well, Dharmesh and Kave are here. Strong comments then, Darms. So will they get involved?
It's easier said than done. It's going to be really difficult in the final 2 weeks for Manchester United to recruit a new goalkeeper. I think there was talk earlier in the transfer window that Manchester United could go in for a goalkeeper amid, like, a lot of rumours about Andre Onana's future. But then Andre Onana actually got injured in pre-season and he was set to be out for 4 to 6 weeks. So any kind of move during the transfer window and the early part of the window was going to be completely ruled out. And then publicly, at least, Ruben Amorim, before and after the game against Arsenal, has publicly said that he is happy with his goalkeeping department. He's happy with the 3 keepers that he's got there in Tom Heaton, Altay Bayındır and Andre Onana. And there was that talk, because he picked Bayındır, was Onana dropped because Onana was fit? He insists it wasn't a dropping at all. He basically said he was fit, but he's hardly trained as compared to the other goalkeepers. He's hardly had any game time compared to the other 2 goalkeepers. And so he made that choice to choose Bayındır over Onana. Now, if an offer was to come in for Onana, there hasn't been one yet, but if there was, then maybe the landscape can change. But as I mentioned to you, 2 weeks today is deadline day. This is not going to be very easy to do, both in and out.
Yeah,
Joe, he's unlikely to join AS Roma. Roma had made a bid worth £20 million for Sancho, and he spoke to the Italian club, but he's decided to explore other options. Mark, what further details do we have at this stage?
Well, personal terms weren't a problem, but going to Rome clearly was a problem for Jadon Sancho. We know that bid was lodged last week and the conversation continued between Manchester United and Roma. We know that Jadon Sancho is one of those players that's available and is being courted by a number of sides in Europe. The offer from Roma, like you say, was £20 million, which was around what Manchester United were looking for. I think maybe a little bit more would have been a guarantee to make that deal happen as far as the clubs were concerned. But clearly, being on £300,000 a week and living in Rome wasn't something that Jadon Sancho was interested in. I went to Rome last year. I thought it was fantastic. I really enjoyed it, you know, coffee and ice cream. Who doesn't want that? So the talks now will centre around other opportunities for Jadon Sancho. We know that, you know, what Manchester United are looking for. Clearly, Jadon Sancho has a preference or a plan in his mind. We know that there's that constant link that's existed between Borussia Dortmund and the player. He joined from Borussia to Manchester United, went back there on loan and got to the Champions League final. Could he be going back for a 3rd time, or is there another potential club waiting in the wings to strike now that they know this Roma deal is not happening? The fact that he's turned down the
expect that Garnacho deal to happen. And then, guys, on Baleba, I wanted to add something on Baleba on today's video because Brighton closed the doors to the exit of Baleba this summer. They told Man United the player is not for sale. They told Man United that we are not indicating a number. It's not about £100 million, 110, 120. We don't want to sell the player. So really putting a...
Carlos Baleba has got 3 years left on his contract. Brighton have got the option to extend that for a further year. They don't want to sell. They've got no intention of selling. And because of his contract situation, they are under no pressure to sell as well. And I think also the price would be pretty prohibitive to Manchester United, and that would make it an almost impossible deal to do as it stands, because I'm sure we'll talk about it later about the number of players that Manchester United want to get money for because they want to offload. But I think Brighton will look at Carlos Baleba and they'll compare him to Moises Caicedo. And you know, the noises coming out of Brighton are saying that he's actually further in his development at his stage of his career than Moises Caicedo was at that stage of his career. And what did Moises Caicedo go for? £115 million to Chelsea. So why can't Brighton say, well, if Moises Caicedo went for that, that's going to be our starting point with Carlos Baleba. As far as Manchester United are concerned, their focus clearly is going to be on the Premier League opener. They have signed, you know, 3 new forward players. They've revamped that front line with Mateus Cunha, with Brian Mbeumo and with Benjamin Sesko. Yeah. But Ruben Amorim